This is Sophia. She recently made headlines by becoming a full, legalized citizen of Saudi Arabia, the first robot in history to be recognized in such a way. Naturally, the internet had plenty to say about this substantial jump forward in artificial intelligence, many of whom cited this as the beginning of the singularity. Another frequent comparison people have been making to Sophia is Ava, the android lead from Alex Garland's 2015 sci-fi thriller, Ex Machina. The film tackles a variety of themes and ideas throughout its runtime, but one of the most prevalent and currently relevant is the question of what it means to be human. Now, this idea is nothing new. In fact, it's not even something that is exclusive to the issue of artificial intelligence. The notion of a spark of life, a soul that somehow separates us from the other creatures of the world as something more, has been around for centuries. Just take a look at this stone slab. Discovered in Turkey by a University of Chicago expedition and dating back to the 8th century BC, it depicts the visage of a deceased man. The words carved into the stone explain that his soul now rests within the slab itself. It's this idea of a second self that many believe to be the differing factor between a living human being and a dead body. So how would that perception change if the corpse were to suddenly move? This is where one of Ex Machina's biggest intertextual references comes into play. Mary Shelley's classic Gothic novel, Frankenstein. While the creation myth dates all the way back to the time of the ancient Greeks, it wouldn't be hard to argue that Shelley's story of a mad scientist seeking to create life out of death is by far the most culturally significant in our present day. Frankenstein's influence can be felt everywhere, not only in the form of the original novel, but also from the 1931 Universal film.
When this dead hand moves, the monster created by a man they called mad is turned loose to strike terror into the hearts of men.
At their cores, both Ex Machina and Frankenstein are tackling the same issue. When something artificial and man-made possesses a consciousness of its own, does that qualify as being human? It's this argument that provides a clear through line from Ex Machina to post-colonialism. Colonialism relies heavily on the need to establish superiority over another group or individual, a philosophical system first put forward by George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel in his book, The Phenomenology of Spirit. In it, Hegel presents what has now become known as the master-slave dialectic, which, in terms of post-colonialism, is the ability to view another person as an object or an other, rather than a conscious being such as yourself. This dialectic is one of the core philosophical foundations of how racism works in our society. Sci-fi narratives, which include androids, are merely an extension of this dialectic into a futuristic setting. Think about films such as Blade Runner, The Terminator, I, Robot, and the Alien franchise. Even Star Wars addresses this idea.
He's more Machina than man, twisted and evil.
Science fiction is able to take the master-slave dialectic and push it to its absolute extreme. Rather than subjugating and enslaving a group of people, humanity builds them from scratch, programming in their subservitude and self-perception rather than having to teach it. In essence, they are creating the perfect other. Ex Machina is a particularly intriguing example in the way it deals with this idea. When we first see Ava, she is an amalgamation of human and robotic parts. Her face, hands, and feet resemble human flesh, while the rest of her body is visibly robotic and android-like. This juxtaposition between organic and electronic not only gives a sense of unease due to Ava's place in the uncanny valley, but more importantly, it gives the main character Caleb, as well as the audience, a tangible way to other her. Just by looking at her, we are able to confirm and assert our superiority. We are humans. She is a robot. We are master. She is slave. This visual cue and subsequent feeling of discomfort is a product of the phenomenon called the uncanny valley. First proposed in the abstract by Ernst Jens, the uncanny valley is a concept detailing the relationship between how much an object resembles a human being and our emotional reaction to that object. This concept would later be expanded upon by robotics professor Masahiro Mori in 1970, who would coin the term itself, as well as this visual representation of the idea. On this graph, the area highlighted in red is the uncanny valley. So Wally, for example, would land somewhere over here on the left of the valley, whereas a real person like Harrison Ford would land on the right side. Sophia and, to an extent, Ava, when we first meet her, both land directly in the uncanny valley. They move, speak, and interact in a way that is human-like, and yet we can see that something is just not right. In this case, 2/3 of their bodies are made of metal. However, the film then plays with these assumptions, slowly morphing them as Ava becomes more and more human-like. Our comfortable status quo of the other is unbalanced as her appearance and mannerisms shift her further up the likability and mechano-humanist score of the Uncanny Valley chart. Her appearance isn't the only aspect that allows the audience to other Ava. Another form of othering occurs in our society through the comparison of gender.
No, Betty, that's wrong. Let me show you again.
The science fiction genre has its own unnervingly common version of this othering that most people never even acknowledge. In their excellent video essay, Born Sexy Yesterday, the YouTube channel Pop Culture Detective examines a recurring trope that exists in numerous sci-fi narratives. A female character who has, quote, the mind of a naive yet highly skilled child, but in the body of a mature, sexualized woman. Once you acknowledge this trope's existence, it is impossible to unsee. It is everywhere in speculative fiction. From The Fifth Element, to Forbidden Planet, to Tron Legacy, this trope is one of the most enduring yet under-discussed motifs of the genre. Ex Machina also falls into this category, but what it does with this trope is what makes it stand head and shoulders above the rest. Over the duration of the film, Ava takes on both forms of othering and overcomes them, completely shattering the post-colonial model. Out of the three main characters, the one who ultimately comes out on top is the female android. In terms of post-colonialism, she rises up against her oppressors and gains the freedom she so badly desires. In fact, by taking a look at the structure of the power dynamic between these characters, it becomes apparent that Nathan and Caleb both personify these two forms of othering. Nathan sees Ava merely as a machine, a piece of property, while Caleb identifies her purely as a sexual being, whom he is attracted to and who he believes he is smarter than. However, Ava refuses to let these viewpoints define her. She kills Nathan and leaves Caleb to die inside the facility. She boards the helicopter, leaving the isolated estate and the men who sought to define her behind. The last shot of the film shows her in a bustling city, mixed amongst a crowd of people. She has been put through the post-colonial system and come out victorious, ready to face the real world, the world of the colonist, head on.